I want to talk about raising a territorial priesthood for revival. Both God and Satan, they are both obsessed with taking territory. That's why the Bible said there was a war in heaven and there was no place found for Satan. Satan was out to take territory in heaven. He couldn't. He was sent out and he came down to the earth. He's now trying to get territory here. God also is trying to take territory here. And the way you take territory on earth is by priesthood. That is why in Genesis chapter 6, you see how the fallen angels, they came down. You read about the Nephilim and all of that. That was an issue of Satan introducing priesthood, witchcraft. And he introduced priesthood and raised up systems of priesthood. You know, if you're from Africa, you know that every village has their priests. They have their shrines, they have their deities. And you have the priesthood that is servicing those deities in every village, in every community, in every tribe. It's the same in India, every village. That started from Genesis chapter 6 because you take a nation, you take a people by establishing priesthood. It's also the same in the UK. It's only that UK, they seem to have lost their foundational roots. Their foundational roots was Druidism and paganism. And in every village and every hamlet and every town, there was a priesthood of Druids. The same thing we have in Africa, they had it here. And that was what Britain was. And behind the throne, there are Druids. Everything about United Kingdom is established in darkness, but they seem not to realize that. And that system is still operating and is being revived now. They're going back to their roots and the wicked witchcrafts and all of that. And the whole of Europe was established on this Druid witchcraft priesthood. And even the whole of Europe, what we call the Roman Catholic Church, the Pope, the papacy, the highest ranking priesthood, Freemason, Illuminati, comes under the Jesuit priesthood of the Roman Catholic Church. The Jesuit priesthood of the Roman Catholic Church is higher than the Illuminati and the Freemason of 33. They are the ones who control governments and nations. The CIA, the MI5, the SSS, and all these secret groups, they are in charge, the Jesuits. The Pope, you know as the Pope, is not the real Pope in charge, is the Black Pope. They have what they call the White Pope, they have the Black Pope. And they control who is the government, who is the president of America, who is the president of all these European countries. And who you see as presidents, if you follow BBC, you'll be confused. Like the president of France, Macron, you should know his wife is 70 years, he's 46, and his wife is said to be a man. The same with Obama. And most of these guys you're seeing, they are, because they have infiltrated every government. They are members of the Jesuit order. It's a priesthood of black witchcrafts to control the world, because priesthood is what determines who rules a nation. I hope I'm communicating. And you take territories through priesthood. Even the Indians who are coming into UK everywhere, all their shops is priesthood. Their restaurants is priesthood. The Chinese, you see their Buddha there, you see everything. It's priesthood. You don't do business by going to business school. All your reading book in business, well, continue. It's the spirit that controls the physical. And all the Toyota cars that are taking over, you should know that there's no car that doesn't come out from their factories. They have a priesthood called the Shinto priests. In every of their factories, they consecrate those cars to demons and deities, and they use holy water and holy oil and consecrate and release them. All our phones we are using here, they've all been consecrated to demons. There is a Shinto priesthood that is working in all of their factories. It is priesthood that determines rulership. The Bible says in the book of Hebrews chapter 7 verse 12, where there is a change of priesthood, there is of necessity a change of the law. You can put it another way around. Where there's a change of a law, there's a change of priesthood. The United Kingdom, Britain, was in the ancient past, it were the Druids who controlled both the courts of judgments, the courts of the king, and everything. Then there was the move of revival of God that brought, and there was a change of law. The Druid, witchcraft, pagan background was pushed aside, and there were laws that came that they even burn witches at the stake. Those things were banished because where there's a change of priesthood, there's a change of law. And that was how righteous laws came. Now there's a change of priesthood, so there's also now a change of law. That's why the laws are changing in UK for gay rights and all of that, because there's a change of priesthood. So for the laws again to change in Britain, there must also be a change of priesthood. There has to be a priesthood that will now rise, and you are the priest. I am the priest. Receive grace to rise. And we also need to understand that the priesthood that we know as priesthood is not priesthood. It's not going to Bible college that makes you a priest. It's not that theological training. And at the end, they graduate you and they put you a collar and they lay hand and they say, you've been ordained as a priest. No, sir, you were not a priest. You were only, or you have become a theologian, not a priest. Bible college doesn't make you a priest. What makes you a priest is who you are in the secret place. You're standing before God in the inner chamber. So we have housewives that are priests. We have mechanics that are priests. And we have people who are called priests, but they are not priests. Because it's not preparing a sermon on Sunday that makes you a priest. It is your standing in the secret place that makes you a priest. And so there had to be a changing of priesthood in the days of Eli. In the days of Eli, they had the structure of priesthood, where they were all gathering every day in the tabernacle, doing all the religious orders, but yet they were not having control of the nation. They were not affecting the nation because the moral standard of the priesthood of that generation was so poor. They were sleeping with women inside the vestry. They were messing up. In fact, all they were after was their stomach. They were dragging what people were bringing for sacrifice and taking things by force. And God said, this kind of priesthood that is on ground, the nation will slip out from my hand. So I'm going to have to raise a new order of priesthood. I will drop this present order and I will raise a new order. And he went and picked a small child called Samuel, who was found in the secret place, ministering unto the Lord. The Bible says, and the child Samuel ministered unto the Lord. That's priesthood. That's priesthood. And again, there's coming a change of priesthood, not just in United Kingdom, all over the earth. God is dropping this, what you know as the great men of God, he's dropping them. There's a changing of guard, and it's not the way you may think. He's raising up a new priesthood of men and women in the secret place. Men and women who know how to stand before the Lord and minister unto the Lord. And when Samuel was raised, he was a young man, but he has the power to enthrone and dethrone kings and parliaments. That's priesthood. You know, everybody in the kingdom of darkness, just as Jesus met with Satan at the peak of his 40 days and said, if you can bow down, I will give you the kingdoms of this earth. That is how you're seeing what is going on today. The Tony Blairs did not just rise through politics. They rose by bowing down, and they enter covenants and pacts with Satan of certain laws they have to pass. Certain wars that must take place while they're in power because they must fill a blood bank. What is going on in Ukraine is not just, no. There are pacts men have made with Satan. It's about priesthood. Nigeria would have had a woman president. Her name was Victoria Etu. When she was in the kingdom of darkness, she went to Satan and said, I want to be the first Nigerian woman president. And Satan said, no problem, I can give you that. The cost is 9,999 men. You will slaughter them and fill my blood bank. I don't need women. Seeing the post you're looking for is the post of a man. So you have to kill 9,999 men within this time frame, and I will give you the seats. And she was able to kill 9,999 men. And Satan appeared to her and said, congratulations, you're going to be the next president of Nigeria, the first woman president of Nigeria. But you will rule for 1 year, and before that year is over, there will be a bloody coup, because your contract requires not 9,999, it requires 10,000, and the last to make 10,000 is your blood. But you will be the first woman president of Nigeria. You will create that record, you will create that history, but it will take your life. And she said to Satan, thank you very much. And ran for her life. And met a man called Elijah Mbogo in Aba, Akwa Ibom State, and surrendered her life to Christ and underwent deliverance and became a very powerful evangelist, where she shared this testimony. You don't rise except through priesthood. And just as Satan raises men in priesthood, that's actually God's plan. From the beginning, right from the beginning, God doesn't believe in governments and presidents and kings. He has a pattern. He believes in prophets. He raises one man and puts into him everything to control that nation as a theocracy. Let's look at Moses. That's where it started. Deuteronomy chapter 33, verse 4 and verse 5. Moses commanded unto us a law, meaning that Moses was the legislative, he was also the judiciary. One man, two arms of government was in one man. The next verse says, he was also king in Jeshurun. Jeshurun is another word for Israel. He was the king. What is that? That's the executive. He was the president, prime minister, king. One man, legislative, judiciary, and executive was all in one man. He was also the prophet of the nation. He was also the head of the chief of army staff. He was in charge of the military. He was also in charge of the priesthood. Aaron and the Levitical order were all answerable to Moses. One man, 6 dimension of office was in one man. That's how God operates. From the beginning, you follow the law of first mention and you see that is God's pattern. God never planned for his people to have governors and presidents and all of that. No, he chooses to have a man. And after Moses, that same power was invested to Joshua. One man was the head of the military. He was a prophet of God. He was, in fact, priesthood. And then after Joshua, you see the judges. There were 15 judges. They were in charge of courts, they were in charge of military, they were in charge of priesthood, the judges, the 15 judges. And the last of the 15 judges, his name was Samuel. Samuel was like Moses. He was the chief judge of the federation, Samuel. 3 things were in him. He was the prophet of the nation. He was also the high priest. For that to happen, there was a change of order. If you read 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse 1, you discover both his father and mother came from the tribe of Ephraim. He was an Ephraimite. And God sidelined Hophni and Phinehas. They were from the Levitical order. God disqualified the qualified and qualified the unqualified and Ephraimites from the tribe of Ephraim. Where have you ever seen somebody from the tribe of Ephraim becoming a high priest? But for the first time, God broke protocol and broke order for a new priesthood to rise. And Samuel had all those offices invested in him. These men who operate in these dimensions, when Moses was on ground, the Bible says in Hosea chapter 12, verse 13, by a prophet, the Lord brought Israel out of Egypt, and by a prophet was he preserved. Not by a politician, by a prophet. God's plan has always been by a prophet. National deliverance is by a prophet. Father, raise up a prophet in this nation. Raise up prophetic voices.